My tough love is coming. You need to get your freelance business website up. And today we're going to talk about the core foundations that go into your website with my friend Alyssa Downey. My guest today is Alyssa Downey, a brand and web designer with a college degree in graphic design. And she's a founder of AMP Designs, where she does a lot of Squarespace and branding. And she's a creator of Make Your Design Matter, which is a resource hub for self employed graphic designers. So if you know this is your niche, you want to go further down, she has a great YouTube channel that will help you. Alyssa is known for creating bold brand and web designs that are rooted in strategy and business goals. She's going to share her story here, how it's not just about aesthetics. So she knows high level brand strategy. So today we're talking about your homepage as a freelancer and the overall branding and visuals of that page, a little bit of web accessibility. This is going to help you finally get your marketing asset over the finish line. So there's a really good freebie for you, how to build a website that converts, a workbook. It's going to be like a checklist style tool that freelancers can use for their own site, but also you can always use it on your clients. So I'm Emily Reagan. I train virtual assistants to be marketing assistants and beyond, going into marketing managers, creative specialists, content managers, content marketers, all the things. I want to get you out of admin land and into the marketing land where you have more flexibility and freedom. You're more able to set up projects and, of course, charge more. Marketing is just more fun. It's creative, it's analytical, and it's been a life changer for me. As a military spouse, as a mom of four, I've been able to freelance with my client work, PCS a lot, and be there for my kids when they come home from the bus. The show is dedicated to helping you get better. And today is about tough love. You need a website. In this day and age with the freelancer trust recession, clients are really vetting who they bring on their team, not just employees, it's the contractors too. You need to be able to show and demonstrate that you are an expert. And the best tool for that is your website. Many of you don't have an email domain. You're still using Emily Reagan at Gmail or something like that. No, it's time to get a domain. It's time to get your website done. It's time to get it across the finish line. So check out Alyssa's freebie. It'll help you do that. And this episode will help you feel good about the design, the website accessibility, and what you're putting out into the world. I'm all about helping you work with better clients, be able to charge more, and not just have to work 60, 80 hours from home just to make ends meet in your new freelance business. That is not the goal here. And so you need to be positioned as the expert. And honestly, I'm not going to refer you if your website looks like SHIT. All right, let's jump into the episode. Today, I am so excited to talk about having a website that actually converts clients. So I brought a graphic designer and website designer, Alyssa Downey here. Hello, welcome to the show. I cannot wait to get into this topic with you. Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about you and your story into getting in the online space.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation. I am Alyssa Downey. I own Amped Designs, which is a brand and web design business. And I help businesses with designs that are very deeply rooted in their core values and their strategy and their goals and look beautiful too. And I'm also the founder of Make Your Design Matter, which provides education and mentorship for self-employed designers to help them ditch the fake it till you make it mindset and feel confident working with clients and growing their design businesses.
Oh, good. That's so needed in this industry. Like you and I have talked how we're both kind of coaching service providers and the client boundaries, the client management, that comes up so much, keeping the scope tighter. And so I'm so glad that you're doing that for your niche because I know how much it's needed.
Those are some of my favorite things to talk about, which sounds really weird, but there's a lot of advice about, how to design and how to charge more money and how to position yourself. But I'm really talking about how to work with clients and eliminate all the hiccups in your process so that everything goes smoothly and you're not feeling bitter with your clients or angry at them and everyone's happy and you get great portfolio pieces at the end of it too.
You must have some lived experiences there that we're gonna have to dive into another time, but I think about why I started my business, and the heart of it was, like, I was trying to help people not go through these mistakes or charge too little and then put up with clients texting you at 10 PM and acting like it's a burning fire. So I can only imagine the stories you have. I might have to invite you into the work group to share a little bit of that because
For
it's so
sure.
interesting behind the curtain, and it's always my top questions when I run UDMA school is the client management.
That would be so fun.
Yes. Okay, so did you study design? How did you get into design? How did you learn websites?
Yeah, okay, so to answer your question about origin story, I have kind of been designing things since high school. Like, I have always been doing this. I initially started using the name Amped Designs in high school. I was designing gig posters and album art for local bands. And then I went to college for graphic design. I went to a design school in New York called Pratt Institute, and I had the goal of working in the music industry. That was what I always really wanted to do. I just love music. I was so inspired by it. I just really love being part of that world. And I followed that path for a while. I started a music magazine where I interviewed local bands and I would design the whole magazine. I'd write all the articles and everything. And I interned at a major record label, which was amazing. It was like, I would not trade that experience for anything. It was so cool. I learned a lot, but probably like most valuable thing I learned was that working in the industry was not as fulfilling as I had expected it to be. And in my college classes, I had focused a lot on branding and putting all this really deep concept and meaning behind my work, and not that that cannot be present in design for music, but it just wasn't the same. It's 2 totally different, well, not totally different things, but different ways that that they were being approached at the record label. And I just knew that I wouldn't feel happy and challenged enough if I stayed on that path. So I kind of pivoted to branding and web design for businesses. And I know that seems like a big shift, but honestly, for me personally, I didn't feel like it was because I still had this same, like, excitement for, like, learning about people's businesses and just getting inspired by, like, all the cool things that they were doing is kind of the same way that I felt about learning about why people write music and all that kind of stuff. So that's my story.
That's fun because it sounds like you really wanted freedom and even though it appears like the dream job, I think so many listeners can relate, right? Like the backside of why we are doing this on our own and not sitting in a 9 to 5. I think it comes with whatever that fancy word is, but it's like being valued, being a part of the impact, like having a seat at the table, and especially when you're creative ideas and expression are in it. And it sounds like you were going way deeper than they wanted, and I'm sure they were like, "This is how we do it. This is the
My god.
framework. Repeat, repeat, repeat."
Every project was just like, "Take this photo and slap Gotham Black on it and call it an album cover." And I would make, like, custom type and present that as an option, and they would still choose the most boring thing. But it is what it is, like, that was the industry.
Yeah.
Um, but I actually did work for design studios in New York for a few years. So I did have the 9 to 5, and my husband and I decided to move to Asheville, North Carolina, where I am now, and it was pretty spontaneous, honestly. We just kinda, like, up and moved one day, and that was when I decided to start working for myself because we looked into opportunities in Asheville, and there actually were not a lot of in-house jobs available, and there still aren't. So I was just like, "Well, I'll just try freelancing." And it ended up being a really, really good fit for me. I don't think I could ever go back to working for somebody else at this point.
Oh my gosh. Everyone here is like, "Yes, yes, yes."
Yeah.
Okay, you have to tell me before we get into, like, design and our converting from our about our homepages, but how did you get your first client? Like, what was that like? Because like, starting over, so many of us are in a transition. There's something that pushes us to just do it, and then that's always the first hurdle. I would love to hear how you did it.
Well, I had some clients while I was working at my full-time job, just here and there on the side.
Okay.
When I officially started working for myself full-time, let's see, the very first client, I don't know if I can remember the first client of, like, all of the clients because I did a lot of little random things all over the place, like a lot of people do when they start out. You just gotta get work. Uh,
Yep.
but my first branding web design client was a referral from a photographer, I believe. So a lot of my early work was from networking and past relationships. So that's something that I really, really talk about a lot is the value of just like nurturing your community and getting out there and meeting people.
Oh, man, I did the same thing, only I was forced to move because of the military, but it was who I met while in that 9 to 5
Mhm.
became the first clients, became the referrals even after I had moved away. It's really interesting that we don't think about that, especially if we're, like, a little salty or exiting in a way where we're like, "I'm done," but it actually can be the great part of your inner circle for the first clients or the indirect referral, right? The person who knows somebody.
Yeah, you just truly never know where things will lead. So I just feel like it's important. Let me clarify. I don't think we should be like going into every relationship thinking like, what can I get out of this?
No, no.
I do think there's so much value in just like showing up and being kind to people and, following through if you say you're going to check in with somebody and just like keeping in touch with people. You just never know what's going to lead to what.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, never go in it with as a taker or like a bucket dipper, right? Tell me about your first clients. Were they in person, brick and mortar? Are they online? And did you end up liking that space more? Well, clearly the answer is yes, but tell us like how that was different.
Most of my clients were and still are local. So I would say like 90% of my clients have always been local. So I do have a lot of in-person meetings, but then I do have a handful of clients that I just work with virtually, and that's great as well. So a mix, yeah.
And that's perfect for websites too,
Mhm.
right? You don't
Yeah.
need to be there.
Yeah, even with my local clients, we will have the initial meeting in person, but then we'll meet virtually for pretty much the rest of the project because it just makes sense when you're
Yeah.
thinking of a website.
Yes. Okay. I don't think I told you this when we were talking before this podcast, but one of the signs I knew that I should go into this field, this industry, it didn't exist at the time, was in high school. I was creating my own websites as well, like AOL, like released something where you could kind of create your own. And I remember having a theme of tomatoes. Don't ask. I don't know what I was doing. And then Angel Fire, I was like playing around with that in college and like trying to figure out code, but I'm not a coder, but I'm a hack. And I also as a kid, like a middle schooler, put together a family newspaper, was like trying to fiddle with the columns and Word. I guess it was a Word doc at the time, and it was a mess, and I didn't know about shortcuts, but, like, that's just, like, little cues that, like, maybe this is something worth exploring even though I didn't go to school for it, like, it just kind of already came natural. How did you get into websites? Did you learn that in school too? Like, I feel very naive. Does design include websites?
That's such a good question, and let me just say I completely relate to that. My childhood was like the Neopets era where there was, like, this page you could add custom code, you can, like, design your own little
Like,
page
MySpace?
and, like yeah, like that kinda stuff. So silly, but fun.
Yeah.
So in college, we did have a web design class, but it was like design and development, like build a website from scratch, which nobody does realistically. So
Yeah.
it was very difficult and I was not very good at it. And when I was in school was kind of around the same time that builders were starting to become a thing. So like Squarespace was fairly new and even like WordPress builders, I feel like were not used as much as they are now. So when I graduated, I did a lot of, like, online courses and webinars and, just online learning to fill in the kind of the gaps in my web design knowledge.
I did that too, very self-taught. I just forced myself. I actually got into WordPress through blogs, and then I was like, "What happens if I do this?" And
Yeah.
just, like, clicking around, and it's very intimidating the first time, but it makes everything else easy after that. So you build websites in Squarespace and combine the branding. So in my lingo, in my, vernacular here, you are a unicorn because you're combining kind of 2 rare skill sets that come together in the marketing sphere. And so I imagine you do a lot of website reviews. You do a lot of seeing what works, what doesn't. What are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing as you combine these 2 fields together in a unique way? And I have to preface, a lot of our unicorns get behind the web developer, usually some dude who didn't really think about the function or the UX. He just like slapped it together and it's templatized. It's like missing things. And so in my UDMA school, we talk about favicons and meta descriptions, and we really set a unicorn up to go in there and start playing. But
Mhm.
eventually, like that can open the door to doing the same type of work you are. So like it's just everyone just pay attention. Pay attention to what Alyssa is saying because it could lead to this even though you might not feel qualified. But tell me like how did you get the courage to just jump in with websites with your clients, like, coming from your background?
Well, I think when I started my business after we moved, I kind of knew I just had to get into it because working with small businesses, it just felt like something I had to offer, which is not true. That was just how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and so for a while, I was making pretty basic Squarespace websites, and I felt really limited by that.
Mhm.
And I ended up taking a course that was about coding in Squarespace and pushing the boundaries of Squarespace, and that honestly, like, revolutionized everything. 'Cause before that, I was feeling like, "I hate doing web design," like, I would be happy to partner with another designer and just hand off every web design to them. Now, I absolutely love it because I just feel so much more confident in what I can
Oh,
do
good.
and also, like, why I am making decisions, like what you said. Like, I know that I'm setting up the website foundationally the right way, and that's really, really important, and now at this point, I can also educate my clients on how they can update their websites or how they can improve their websites, things like that. So, I guess I don't know if this is really answering your question, but, all this to say, I do think there's so much value in learning as much as you can online, and it's worth noting that, like, if it's not something you have a background in or you haven't done before, then it's not gonna be, like, necessarily amazing and, you're not gonna be selling $10,000 websites immediately, and that's normal and fine, and I was not selling $10,000 website. I still don't like, every website I do now is not a $10,000 website, but there's this, like, obsession with charging that, which is why I'm using that number. But anyway, it was years of, like, learning this and taking this course and perfecting and learning more about SEO and marketing and branding and all the things that overlap with web design that got me to the point that I am now. So I just think it's really important to normalize the journey. It's not like you're just gonna start out and immediately like, know everything there is to know about web
Oh
design.
my gosh. I love that you shared that because it can be so intimidating and it's so easy in this service provider land to feel less than because you see
Yeah.
someone who started earlier. And even me, I'm like, I'm not a coder. I played around and show it websites, but I'm no coder and I'm no show it designer. And so like I find ourselves like, I'm just talking about myself, of course, but keeping ourselves smaller and keeping it in the box when actually it almost sounds like the dabbling, and of course, the investment in the right next step pays off, and we just get better and better. And I think about my very first website I made. I had a glass of wine one Saturday night, whipped that together. So ugly looking back. You wouldn't recognize it. But you know what? I got smarter, and then I was able to build from that and build from that. So, of course, went all in with WordPress, but yeah, it's such a funny thing. So you do website audits, you do this for clients, and so you're the perfect expert to talk about what we should do as freelancers for our own website, which is always a sticking point with my people, trying to give them tough love. I'm trying to really reinforce the fact that clients are vetting you. If you want to charge more, they're vetting you and your website is everything. And I guess it's not everything. That sounds silly. It's part of that vetting process, but especially if you're offering landing page services or any kind of content marketing services, like you need a really good one. And so you're in the perfect situation to tell us like what works, what doesn't, what are the biggest mistakes. So let's talk about the homepage. I have never had anyone on this show talking about the homepage and how critical that is. So what are you seeing with homepages? What's the biggest pitfall?
Okay, so I do website reviews, and then I also tend to do mini reviews throughout the year for fun that really pack a ton of value in. And the number one piece of advice that I give to almost everybody that I do a review for, whether it's a full review or a mini review, is that the first message on your homepage needs to be clear. It needs to say exactly what you do and who it's for. There are so many people that try to get very creative because I think that we're also taught to add brand personality and try to find this super fun way to give your elevator pitch. But if people cannot immediately figure out what you do, they are much less likely to explore your site and try to figure it out. So, what I mean by this is like, to give you an example, if the top of your homepage is like, step into your abundance, or like, I help you unlock your inner magic, like, nobody knows what that means. Like, it
No.
to say, I'm so and so, a business coach for creatives. And then you can add the creative words around that. Like you could say, I'm a business coach who helps you step into your magic or whatever, better examples than that. But it needs to have the clarity before the creativity. That is the number one piece of advice that I give everybody. And it's not,
Oh,
let me also add, it's not even just for clarity for people who are on your site, but that headline at the top of your website. Okay, now I'm breaking into sidebar advice. This is gonna be the header 1 text style. That's really important for SEO as well, because that headline, the header 1 text tells Google what that page is about, and because it's your home page, it's telling Google what that site is about. So if you don't have the clarity of the searchable keywords and exactly what you do, then you're missing an opportunity to, boost how you're showing up in Google search results.
oh my gosh. I love that. And I love that this ties on to our SEO episode. We just had Laura Jawad on there. I also review some of our unicorns websites, or I'll go over their services guides and whatnot. And I'm always telling them, like, use the clear job title. And so a lot of them will make up stuff. And I'm like, it's still not common vernacular. And it's such like a funny world because you can't go too far out there where we don't know what it means or it's a bunch of jargony, but also virtual assistant we're not happy with either for many reasons that everyone knows listening to this show. And so I love that you're saying the same thing. Like it's got to be very clear who you are. And I find a lot of people also make it about them. They tend to make it about them a lot. And I wish I would have some examples of bad headlines, which I do
Mhm.
have in a Canva presentation somewhere. But yeah, it's got to be, I think for the service provider, it's the transformation and it's who they are. I hate too when it is the general promise, the vague promise, and I'll help you grow your leads. And you're like, well, are you a lead specialist? Are you on TikTok? Like that's also the generic kind of wording you're talking about.
And yes, and what you were saying about maybe you don't like the title virtual assistant or whatever the searchable keyword is, it's still important, but that doesn't mean that you can't also use that. You can just explain that later on the page. You can say like, I like to refer to it as this, or like, I'm a virtual assistant, but what I really do is this. I think there are other ways
Ooh.
you can get around that, and a copywriter can probably give much better examples than me. But I know it can be tricky to balance because we don't wanna sound like a robot. We don't wanna sound like we're writing it for Google, but it is important.
Yeah,
And,
something to keep in mind.
like, people need to understand it.
So what is more important, the text, the copy, the clarity that you just brought up, or the personality?
Honestly, this is coming from a designer, like, I love design. I love making things look good and creative and fun. I honestly think the clarity is more important. But like I said, that doesn't mean you can't have any creativity. I think you just need to start with a very clear statement, and then you can add the other fluffy words around it.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I agree. I see it too muddled down with a lot of virtual assistants, like, not being clear, and a lot of it is because they haven't figured all of that out, like, they haven't picked their niche and really committed to that, so that's interesting. My friend Sam Burmeister just asked me to be in a compilation podcast, and it doesn't come out for, like, another month or 2, and she was asking what's better, text, copy, or design,
Mm,
and I actually said copy
mhm.
comes first, but I like your answer better.
Well, like, I don't mean to say that design is not important, but I agree because you can have the best website design in the world, but people can't understand what you do, who it's for, why you do it, then they're not going to buy the thing that you're selling. And if you're trying to get your website to show up in SEO or even ChatGTP and all the AI stuff these days, if you're not thinking about that, then you're missing opportunities to get your website found.
Yeah, and that, like, opens up a whole SEO topic, which you go back and listen to the previous episode, but and then I think about the topic of, like, AI visibility as well, and the key things that you need to have on your website. But when it comes to a service provider, a freelancer who's selling their service, is there anything that's a must-have on that homepage that people muck up?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I think in the freebie that I sent you, there are recommended page structures for each page of the site.
Ooh.
And it's definitely not like a blanket, everybody needs to have exactly this page structure, but there is a recommended homepage structure if you like don't even know where to start.
Oh, good.
Say, like, for service providers, one thing that I really love to see that's sometimes missing is just a little introduction to who you are, because working with a service provider is such a personal experience, especially if you are working one-on-one with clients. They really need to feel like they trust you and they're comfortable with you. And so I love a little like, "Hey, I'm the human being behind this business." And also, don't forget to put your name in there because I cannot tell you how many websites I review where people are using I statements and there's photos of them and they're talking about this great personal experience, but then nowhere on there does it say their name. And I'm like, who
Oh,
are you?
oh my God, I've seen that too. I am so freaking excited you're gonna come into the work group and give us some mini audits because I see that a lot. And it's hard when you're hunting and you're like, I'm new to this person, I don't actually know who you are, and I'm just trying to find your name on something, or I might know your face from Instagram. People will do that on Instagram too, and I'm like, "But what's your actual name?" So I'm glad you brought that up, and that's a lot for us to put ourselves out there sometimes and have that, little bio section and show the personality. So I'm glad you called us out on that. People need to hear that and do that because that's their unique selling, position right there.
I totally agree. And I'm a huge advocate of a photo of yourself. I know that some people feel very uncomfortable with that. And if you're strongly opposed to it, ditch the photo. But I still think you need to introduce yourself and like form that relationship.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me about website accessibility because I know this is one of your sticking points, and I see this coming up a lot in the online space. Like, what is that, and what do we need to do and have in mind when we're designing our own site?
I'm so glad that more people are talking about this lately. I've seen that too, and it's great. And if we think about having a physical business, like a brick and mortar business, there are ADA guidelines that you have to adhere to. Like if you have stairs, you also have to have a ramp. You have to have a bathroom if you have people coming into your space. There are things that you have to make sure that the space is accessible for everybody to use, to come into. And with your website, it is basically the home of your business online. And there are guidelines for accessibility for your website as well. And it's really, really important because we want everybody to have a good experience and be able to navigate and read the pages and understand what you do and have an opportunity to work with you. So if we're not like building the website according to best practices for SEO for accessibility foundations, then you're potentially cutting people out.
Yeah, we don't want that. That's not today's age here. So what should we be doing?
Yeah. So a lot of the SEO practices actually also benefit accessibility. So the clarity is super, super important. And one other thing that I talk about a lot is proper heading structure. So, especially for anybody who is maybe a marketing assistant for web designers and you're maybe like helping populate text on web pages, things like that. This is really important to know. Those text styles that are like header one, header two, paragraph one, paragraph two, so on, those are not just for design. Those are actually really important for SEO and accessibility. So the top headline on the page needs to be the header one text style, and then it cannot be used anywhere else on the page. It has to be at the top and it can only be used once. And then the other subheads throughout the page should follow the order of importance, like hierarchy of importance. So, like the top headline might be like, again, not a copywriter, but it might be like about so and so, business coach for creatives, and that's header one. And then there's a short paragraph about it. And then we use header two to say my core values. And then you might use header 3 for another subhead under that because hierarchy of importance. And so that's important for SEO. But the way that it impacts accessibility is if somebody has a vision impairment, for example, they might use a screen reader to read the web page to them. And that has the ability to read the headlines first so that they can then go back and decide what section of the page they want to read. And so you can imagine if these are not in any sort of order or they're not like assigned properly, and if they're not clear, they're going to have no idea what is going on that page. And how are they going to know what they want to go back and read?
Oh my gosh, that's so insightful. I don't think I fully realized that when it came to the headline order, because sometimes I'm just looking at the size.
Yeah, it is really important. And I mean, anyone can be the judge of like what is more hierarchically important when it comes to like header 2, 3, 4. But like the one at the top and then the clarity is really important because again, like if they're using a screen reader, it's going to say about so and so, my core values, my services, whatever. That's very clear. So they can say, I want to go back and read my services. But if it's like flow in abundance, some, inner magic, whatever, it's like, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of
What
interesting.
about contrast? I've heard that this is an issue too.
Yeah, that's another big one. And I would love to say that this is intuitive and you can just use your eyes and be like, well, that looks like it has enough contrast, but it's not always intuitive as we think. There are website contrast checker. You can just Google like web accessibility color contrast checker. And there's tons of sites where you can plug into hex codes and it will tell you if there is enough contrast between the text on top of the background color. And it is often not as like obvious as we would think that it would be. And so we want it to pass the test, obviously. That's another important thing.
I think one of the things that irks me is that really messy handwriting font that
Yeah.
people I mean, it was kind of like the 2020, 2019 font that all the creatives were using, but it got really sloppy and hard to read, and I wondered if you had any thoughts, like, on that as I do.
Yeah, and I think that's something you kind of touched on earlier with developers trying to just make things look cool. And there definitely was, maybe even still is, a trend of prioritizing style over accessibility and clarity and ease of user experience. A couple years ago, I think this is dying out now, but a couple of years ago, there was this huge trend of like beige, tone on tone, kind of like dark beige on top of light beige, very thin, elegant text, script fonts,
Yeah.
tiny, tiny, tiny text. And like it's very beautiful, but it is so hard to read. And I think it's really important to put yourself in the shoes of a website visitor, maybe somebody who doesn't have impeccable vision, who has maybe never gone to your site before, and just like try to look at it objectively and just think like, is the text large enough for somebody who like doesn't have their glasses on? Uh,
Yeah.
is there enough contrast? Like, can people read the script? I mean, kids are not even learning cursive anymore. So if your target audience is like very young, that's a consideration, honestly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so speaking of, like, the design trends, is there anything right now I wanna get your scoop. What's hot? What's not? What is looking tired and same, like, what are like, I love talking about this because 'cause I'm starting to see, like, okay, I'll just call it what it is. Like, Amy Porterfield came out with and I'm not sure if it was even her, but she had that, like, little highlighter under the text, and then, like, everyone's doing it. And then it's like, okay, everyone's, like, blush and black, and so what are you seeing right now, and how do we stand out? How do we look different? Like, talk to me about the design part.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm seeing a move away from the beige finally. And I'm seeing a lot more maximalism, just like big, bold, bright, which I personally love because I just personally like that. And I've been seeing a lot of like rounded corners, things with outlines, which is stuff that I have done for a long time that now I'm like, now I'm gonna look like I'm trendy. But
Yes.
anyway,
You're like, I'm the first, I did it first."
but okay, there's two things that I think about this. The first is that for me, I think I do have a style. I think most of my work looks like it was done by me, but at the same time, for me personally, it is more important for me to design for my client's brand. So it's really important to me to really understand what their goals are and who their business is, their core values, what they want to be communicating, their target audience, and that enforces the design more so than just like this is trendy right now or I like this. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, this might be like a slightly hot take, maybe, I don't know.
Good, good, bring
um
it.
with websites, we actually want them to be fairly familiar because people's
Mhm.
attention spans online is very short. If they can't figure out how to use your website, they are going to leave. So there's a reason that every website has text at the top and then you scroll down and then there's maybe 3 blocks and then you scroll down. They all follow the same general structure because that's what people know how to navigate. So it's actually not always beneficial to have some crazy new feature on your website, like things that scroll sideways, for example. That's
Oh, yeah.
really unintuitive for people. One other thing that people sometimes will do is change the hamburger, the hamburger navigate, the three little lines, that's the hamburger menu that slides out the menu. They'll change that to something else, but that's not always intuitive that that's the hamburger menu. So it's really important that people can immediately understand how it works, what to click on, and so actually kind of some of the web design standards are actually really important. Um,
Oh, I never thought of it like that. Like, you think you're just being cool and breaking the rules, but you're making it
yeah.
difficult on people.
Yes, yeah, it's actually I would argue that your website is one of the places where you don't really wanna break the rules because, yeah, like everything I just said, if people don't understand what's going on, they're gonna leave.
How do you balance the design of desktop to mobile? Because that to me is where most people are and is the most limiting and probably the most boring. Like, do you have any tips for that? Because I know that's what a lot of marketing assistants are doing is like helping with the mobile version or making those tweaks or, optimizing those files.
Yeah, because I work in Squarespace, to be honest, it is fairly easy on Squarespace. It kind of moves everything and then you just kind of move it into place. So that works out well in my favor. But that said, I mean, kind of a similar answer. I do think mobile is typically more simple because, like, you have to think about, like, there's no hover effect on mobile. And
Yeah.
so a lot of fun features that you are putting on a desktop site just don't make any sense on a mobile phone. So I personally think it's okay for it to be a lot more simple and less flashy. And again, we want people to be able to, like, quickly and clearly, easily find the things we want them to do. With mobile sites, it's already gonna be a longer page, it's already more scrolling, so I don't think we want all these flashy things that are gonna distract them. So I'm more of an advocate for, like, if there's weird things moving, which could be an accessibility issue by itself, and, like, weird things going on the desktop site, maybe it makes sense to just not even have that on mobile.
Oh my gosh, I love that. No weird things on mobile, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, if I, don't have as much design experience, like, I don't call myself a designer, what are 2 or 3 design tweaks I could do to my website to just look more professional?
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, I would say let's see. That's such a good question.
Am I gonna stump you? No.
Okay, so I think if we're talking design specifically,
Mhm.
I would say, like, number 1 to check your color contrast because it's important for accessibility, and if your colors don't pass and you're like, "I don't wanna come up with a whole new color palette," just, like, darken or lighten one of them, and so you're not necessarily adding a new color, you're just adding a new shade of the same color. That's a really
Okay.
easy way to adjust your colors while still feeling like they're all on brand with your existing color palette. Okay, the other thing I would say is, another thing I often see is sites where kind of like everything is in one section on the same background color, and it's just like all this big long section. But I would love to see sections of content like broken up more with different background colors. So like maybe alternate between dark and light backgrounds or like even white and light gray or something just so you can like visually break up the information. It helps it feel more digestible for people.
Mm. Is there like a rule for that? I've never heard anyone talk about that because sometimes I'll see, especially Kajabi websites, and they're really blocky. It's like color, 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 and Kajabi's already really blocky. Can you do that wrong? Can you do that in a distasteful way?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I think, like, you don't wanna have, like, 10 different color backgrounds.
Yeah.
We don't need, like, every color of the rainbow. I think it's just a matter of, like, separating sections of information so that people
Okay.
can just be like people tend to skim on websites. Like, some people are gonna read everything and some people are just gonna skim. So, when you have it broken up, it's easy for them to be like, "Oh, skim this new section. Oh, this is the section I'm interested in. Skip this, read this," you
Mhm.
know? So, it just makes it so much cleaner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is fun to, like, process out loud with you because 'cause I'm like, I don't have the formal training you do, but I feel like I have a knack for when things look bad.
Yeah,
Like, why is that bad?
I mean, yeah, can't think of, like, any other specific reason why it would look distasteful, but, like,
Yeah.
it
I don't know,
certainly
sometimes
can.
yeah. One time I had a client, her website was actually in Squarespace, and I was doing her sales page, which I do a lot of those. And I don't do, like, all website, I don't do the branding, so I'll take what you have, maybe use the templates you have, and, like, make sure we have all the sales components, which is, like, a whole 'nother topic. But I was really trying to break out her sections, and I think I did this intuitively, but I took some liberty, and I lightened her red and it looked pink and she hated it, and I just remember thinking like, "Oh, it's just like get over it." Like, I need like a 3rd color here because it was really hard to differentiate the buttons from the color blocking or the ribbons or I don't know what the exact word is, and anyway, she was so disgusted, and I felt really bad because in my head, I was like, "Eh, like, this is like a quick thing," and I didn't think it was that bad, but looking back, it is about what the client wants. I did deviate from her 2 colors, but she did have a lot of gold, and so I
Okay.
think what I ended up doing was using one of her images and doing I don't even know what the word is. I'm feeling website stupid talking to you, but when you have the image underneath, like,
Oh,
whether you can scroll or it's sticky or not, and then you can put, like, the text block over it, and usually you might have a white background if there's no contrast, but that way you just have that what is that called?
do you just mean, like, where the image stays and the text scrolls while the image stays in place?
Yeah, or it's like the image is just in the background. It's the
Oh,
image as background. I'm
yeah,
sure
no,
there's a sexy word.
a hero image, I think, is maybe what
Okay.
yes.
Well,
I know
I
what you
thought
mean.
hero was, like, the top, right? Or, like, the
Yeah, it's
person.
typically
Can
at
it
the
just be a
top.
pattern? Can a hero just be a pattern?
Yeah.
Okay, then I have a new name, thank you.
But I feel like you can always suggest something like the pink, and then if the client doesn't like it, you just do something
Yeah,
else. Like, you
yeah,
tried.
yeah. No, I'm honestly just telling a story here because I thought it was funny because because sometimes you're like, "I'm running out of ways to block out your section," and when you get that page from a copywriter, it's just like, bam, like, very rarely is anything wireframed out to that level, and I'm like, "Okay." Anyway.
I also when I have clients that have a lot of text, I will sometimes break it into bullet points, or I might break the text into smaller sections with subheads. Like, I had a client who recently, who wrote her story, and she was talking about her professional background and her job experience and stuff, and it was just this long thing. So I kind of adjusted so she had, like, a paragraph about her general story, and then it was, like, professionally, and I just, like, bullet pointed what she had in the paragraph. I just turned it into bullet points, and then, like, job experience and bullet pointed it. So I think it's okay to suggest things like that, and then if the client doesn't like it, then we can figure out something else, but it just helps it, again, be more skimmable, more
Yeah.
digestible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
copywriters don't always have the design in mind, and some of them can get kind of wordy, or sometimes I find I need a headline, and I'll just, like you said, make one that but I'm going off instinct here. I don't have the training you have.
Well, I do think so much of it is instinct though, that it's, like, hard to put into words why. It's just like we just know. We just know.
Yeah,
We've done so much of this.
yeah. Do you have a place where you share websites that are, like, really pretty? Do you, like, just, like, enjoy looking at some that are really well done? Do you, like, nerd out on that?
Oh, yes. I subscribe to Site Inspire. It's
Ooh.
just, like, every week I get a newsletter with beautiful websites to look at for
Oh
inspiration.
my gosh, I love that. It's like a little trick of the insider trick there.
Yeah, and then I have Pinterest. Oh my gosh, I have a very well organized Pinterest for inspiration, of course.
Because people put their websites there?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously just like static images, so it's not the same experience as actually going to a website, but yeah, I use that a lot for
Yeah.
inspiration.
Do you use it for your own portfolio? Because I feel like you just like opened up a little Pandora box right there.
Oh gosh, this is something that I've thought about getting into a lot, but I have never really dove into Pinterest marketing. I do have pin my work on there, but I don't have any strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Mostly inspiration for me.
I have had some Pinterest clients. A lot of them were designers, furniture painters, so it's like a different kind of client, but I have seen and heard that strategy and it just like popped in my head. I'm like, "Oh, wow, I heard that years ago and I
Mm.
never dived into that." But yeah, I have seen that as a service provider sharing it, sharing your designs in a way that would be fun to like nerd out and see what those pins look like because you could do it. I mean, even if you can't, I mean, Pinterest is such like an ongoing content game, but even if you key ones, it could be searchable.
Yeah, I'm so interested in learning more about that, honestly.
Okay, well, I am gonna have a social media series, and I have some friends you can talk to as well. Unicorns who do Pinterest. Heck, if you wanna outsource it. Before we wrap up, I do wanna ask you a little bit about, topography and, like, pick your brain on that. And first, but you already hinted at it, tell us about your freebie because this sounds like it's going to be really helpful for somebody who wants to feel more confident when they hand over a project to their client, when they're doing it for themselves, when they're justifying why they did this over that. And you have a freebie called How to Build a Website That Converts.
Yes, so this is a freebie that I share after I lead workshops about how to fix your website and build a website that converts. And so it kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of the things that we talked about. It starts with some questions that sort of get you into the right mindset to make appropriate edits to your website that are like conducive to your goals and not just about like, well, this looks nice or I like this. And then I also included some checklists of really important things to keep in mind when you're making updates or edits. And then, like I mentioned earlier, recommended page structures for the common pages that are on most sites.
Oh my gosh, this is so helpful.
I hope so. I know it can feel really, really overwhelming, especially when you're building your own site. We just get so in our head. So I wanted to create a guide that can just kind of take some of that pressure off and just, like, give you the peace of mind to know, like, what you need to do and if you're doing things the right way.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Because I know my unicorns struggle with that. It's the cobbler's kids. We're working on our clients and then our business comes like fourth, right? I'm hoping this is like the punch to get started or go back and audit and make better, which a lot of people are in that boat. But what would you say to someone who is just getting started and hasn't done that first? Like what could they focus on so it's not so daunting?
If it's just a brand new site and you've never done anything like this before, just get it up, honestly. I think there is so much value in just starting, and you'll just learn so much more as you keep going. Like, everyone has to start somewhere. I feel like I am constantly learning new things about web design in particular, like, it is changing every week. So, you're never gonna be at a point where you're like, "I know everything I need to know now to build this site." Like, you just have to build it. The beauty of websites is that you can always adjust. So, just get it up. I think if you have the opportunity to learn some of these foundational things, that's great, and you can use them, you can implement them on your first site, but if you just need to get it up, just get it up, and you can fix the heading structure later, and you can fix the colors later and everything.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that, like, echoing you. It brings up a lot of deep things, like the images of yourself, the messaging of yourself. Who are you to do this? What's your branding? What's your logo? And it can be hard when we know more or we're in marketing and we're doing stuff for our clients. So I'm okay with the messy first one, and then you make the changes from there. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I'm going to link to the how to build a website that converts in the show notes. Everybody grab that. It's gonna help you with the structure. It's gonna help you feel good about what you're creating. Now I'm really wondering your spicy hot take on topography because I feel like a lot of us can be in Canva thinking, overthinking, double thinking. I don't know what the word is there, but over analyzing the fonts. Do you have any good graphic design advice for some of us who don't have the training that you have?
Sure. So something that I see a lot in particularly DIY graphics is everything is like the same size. And when we're trying to get someone to take an action, it's really important to focus on hierarchy. Like, what is the most important thing? Like, how can you grab their attention? So we should have like, something larger, whether it is a call to action or it's like whatever the sale is, whatever the thing is that you're like advertising in that graphic. And then like again, like hierarchy of importance of text that'll just help it again feel more skimmable, more digestible, and it'll help people's eye go, like, to the thing you want them to read first instead of just getting, like, overwhelmed by everything that is, like, the same size.
I love that. I used to do a newspaper and do the layout and design for that or be the editor. And one of the things I learned early on in my 20s, I didn't learn in journalism school, was that we would have that hero. We actually called it a hero image, but we would have an image that was larger and some that were smaller on every page. And we'd have like a collage, like roundup of everything happening around the community. Like there were always images that were bigger and smaller. And so it made such a difference in the design rather than having that like 3 by 3 Canva grid where your eyes don't know where to look. So I think that's really good advice. And I'm just going to call it, I've seen a lot of bad designs from beginning virtual assistants. And so it is that mixing fonts that don't go together or more than, 3 fonts, picking out childish fonts, the colors, like, I see a lot of things going wrong and not like that much. I mean, I think people are getting better and Canva templates have gotten really good. So if we can bring like a little bit of that graphic design I to our designs, I think that would just make us all better. Do you have any other tips with that? Like, I know I'm like milking you here at the end of the interview. I think it'll be
Yeah.
really helpful.
Yeah, and those are such great points. I think if anyone is planning to do graphics, like assistance with graphics, but you don't have a graphic design background, it could be a good idea to take a graphic design class, whether it's an online course or like a course at a community college. Like just some foundational knowledge can really go a long way. And then I would also say in terms of like color, fonts, stuff like that, I'm sure you have other advice for your students about this, but I'm thinking I would always ask for that to come from the client. And if they don't have that, they need to provide that or pay you to create a brand kit for them so that
Yeah.
everything you're creating uses the same colors and fonts and looks the same. And that would eliminate a lot of that like random mishmash of fonts and colors.
Yeah. And AKA, we can also work with you, right?
That would be great.
You do that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is another, yeah, or refer them to a branding expert.
Yes, yes. Okay, I wanna ask you about your site. It is so different. I have never seen anything like that. Everyone listening is gonna be wanting to go check it out. Can you talk to me a little bit about, like, the strategy and the thinking behind that?
Oh, thanks. My site, I really love bold, colorful design, and that was what I wanted in my site. Like I said, tend to cater my design style to what is best for my clients, but I really love working on design that is bold, colorful, a little bit different. And so my site is designed to attract clients that want that.
Okay, and my little hint here, so everyone goes and checks it out, is the red pillow in the background. That's like your little Easter egg, and you'll get a
Oh,
taste
yeah.
you'll get a taste of what's on her website. It's very different, very unique color combo, which I actually wore an outfit kinda similar for a photo shoot. My stylist was like, "You should try this and be different." And I'm like, "Oh."
Ooh, I
So,
love that.
yeah.
Hey, you
Yeah,
know what? The bright red, though, does not pass the accessibility test. I can't use that as a background for anything because it
right.
doesn't pass.
Like
So
an accent, okay.
that's a perfect example of like looking at it, you'd be like, yeah, what's the problem? Put white text on top of the red. It doesn't pass the test. So it's
Yeah.
not always as obvious as you would think.
Yes, that makes sense. And I'm also laughing because my marketing assistant, Shannon, sent me a graphic this morning that had no contrast.
Oh,
Talk about it. I'm like, "I love it, but, like, my pink is really hard to work with, and you can't make it a background color," and I just told her that, so I'm laughing. I don't even know if she'll listen to this episode, but I'm completely laughing here. Okay, Alyssa, this was so much fun. I'm so excited for you to come in the work group and give mini website audits to our members, And you also do branding and website design for anyone who has clients who need this higher expertise. Alyssa is your girl for that. Where is the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. This was so fun. I love that we dove into so many different topics. You can find me at ampeddesigns.com. It's AMPD Designs. So there's no E in amped and the D repeats. And then I'm Amped Designs on Instagram and Threads. And then Make Your Design Matter is my educational resources for designers on YouTube.
Yes, you have a very robust YouTube that goes into a lot of client boundaries, scope management, what to say when a client doesn't like your design, all things. Half my unicorns are like, yes, I need that. So go check that out too. All right, Lisa, thank you so much. We'll see you over on Instagram. All right, if this was a helpful episode, please hit subscribe so you don't miss another show. I just want to point out the education Alyssa mentioned. She had to learn coding for Squarespace. She took a course. She suggested that budding graphic designers take a course, have some of that theory, especially so you know what you're doing with your clients, right? This is all about you being efficient and also confident and being able to sell your work. I loved her story of leaping into freelancing, how you just have to do it kind of messy. Sometimes something pushes us to do it. I also want to point out that inside the Unicorn Digital Marketing Assistant School, we cover the basics of landing page design so that you can offer this as a skill, as a service. I started by doing blogs, just like I mentioned on the show, then adding in landing page design and whatnot. And then eventually, I've even created a couple websites for clients too. So UDMA covers the favicons, the pixels, the meta descriptions, the landing page design, menu bars. We also do walkthroughs of Kajabi and WordPress. And then inside my digital marketers work group, we have more training with Go High Level, Squarespace, and even a Show It walkthrough. And we're just adding more and more. So you can learn all of the tech. You can see how other unicorns are doing it. And you can have the confidence to dive in, even if you don't have a formal degree or a ton of client experience. Again, I'm Emily Reagan. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this helps you in your business.